Liz takes a deep breath to steady her wandering thoughts. She reminds herself that now is not the time to get lost in daydreams. She still had to help Juivan prepare the bucket full of meat, but just as she moves to do some messy or heavy work, Juivan smiles and stops her. He starts doing all the difficult work himself. Seeing this, Liz becomes even more confused. In her world, such tasks always fell to women, but Juivan was doing it all without hesitation, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for him. She couldn't understand why this man was so different. Meanwhile, Juivan slowly moves closer to her. His face comes right up to hers. Liz's heart begins to race. Only one thought crosses her mind. Is he going to kiss me again? At that thought, her eyes close instinctively, but the very next moment, instead of her lips, Juivan plants a gentle kiss on her forehead. Liz immediately opens her eyes. She feels a tinge of embarrassment at her own expectation. She had been thinking that perhaps this time he would kiss her on the lips. Juivan instantly notices the bashfulness on her face. He smiles faintly and leans towards her once more. This time, Liz stubbornly keeps her eyes open. She thinks Juivan might be about to tease her again, but that doesn't happen. He gently places a small, tender kiss on her lips. For a moment, Liz is completely taken aback. She hadn't expected Juivan to actually do it. Her face turns red with embarrassment. Just then, she catches sight of Dorothy. A wave of nervousness washes over her. What if she saw us? The mere thought makes her feel even more embarrassed, and the very next moment, she rushes out of the barn in a panic, looking just like a cartoon character. As soon as Liz leaves, Dorothy feels it is now her responsibility to help Juiwan. She begins to help in whatever way she can with her tiny hands. Although she isn't able to do much, Juiwan still smiles and thanks her sincerely. Hearing that was enough to bring a lovely smile to the little girl's face. Juiwan picks up the bucket filled with meat and enters the main cabin. His expression changes the moment he steps inside. A pungent stench of rotting hides permeates the entire room. At first, he doesn't understand why Liz is drying animal hides right inside her living quarters. But when he watches her carefully cleaning them, he realizes just how valuable these hides are to her. In that moment, he also becomes aware of his own naivety. There were still so many things about this world that he knew absolutely nothing about. Things that were considered common and cheap in his previous world were proving to be incredibly valuable here. Juiwan realizes that if he truly wants to live in this world, simply being strong won't be enough. He also needs to learn about local trade, the value of goods and financial transactions. Otherwise, a cunning merchant could easily take advantage of him someday. Meanwhile, Liz sets about salting the meat to preserve it for the long term. Seeing this, Juiwan thinks it would be better to head into the forest and get some more work done rather than sitting idle. But just as he starts to leave, Liz stops him. Concern is clearly visible on her face. She is afraid that Juiwan might get injured again. Juiwan smiles and reassures her with gestures that this time he is only going to chop wood. There won't be any danger. Finally, Liz reluctantly lets him go. Upon reaching the forest, Juiwan spots a small tree. He thinks it would be perfect for practice. In reality, he had been hoping to find an oak tree, as he had heard its wood was considered the best for a fireplace. However, he could not distinguish between the different species of trees, so he decided to practice on whatever tree was right in front of him. He takes aim at the tree, tightens his grip on the axe, and strikes with all his might, but his grip still wasn't firm enough. As the blow lands, the axe slips from his hand, flies off, and falls to the ground. Juiwan feels embarrassed for a moment. He quickly glances around to see if anyone witnessed the incident. After hours of hard work, he finally returns to the cabin carrying a large sack filled with wood. Although he had promised Liz he wouldn't hurt himself this time, practicing with the axe was no easy task. His hands kept slipping, leaving his body covered in minor scratches and wounds. Seeing him in that state, Liz becomes worried and immediately sets about cleaning his wounds and applying ointment. Dorothy wants to help too. She takes some water from a jar and innocently sprinkles it on Juiwan, hoping to make him feel a bit better. Even though half the water spills onto the ground during her attempt, Juiwan understands her sweet gesture. He smiles and gently strokes her head, and Dorothy beams with happiness. Once the wounds are tended to, the three of them sit down at the dining table. Today, Liz serves meat from the very wolf Juiwan had hunted the previous evening. After many days, the family finally had the chance to eat their fill of meat. Dorothy was the happiest of them all. She eats so much that shortly after, her eyelids begin to droop, and she drifts into a deep sleep. Juiwan smiles as he lifts her into his arms and gently lays her down on the bed, ensuring she can sleep comfortably without getting cold. Meanwhile, Liz prepares some warm water for Ju Hee-won so he can wash away the dust, dirt, and fatigue of the day. In keeping with the traditions of this medieval world, it was the wife's role to care for her husband and, when necessary, bathe him. With a damp cloth and gentle hands, Liz begins to wipe the dust from Ju Hee-won's body. Ju Hee-won finds comfort in the realization that for the first time, someone is caring for him with such genuine concern. At the same time, Liz feels a sense of shyness with every passing moment. Whenever her gaze falls upon Ju Hee-won's strong physique, she immediately looks away. Her face repeatedly flushes with embarrassment. Ju Hee-won senses her nervousness. Smiling, he gently takes her hand and plants an affectionate kiss on her forehead. For a few moments, they remain lost in each other's eyes. This quiet, tender moment deepens the bond between them more than ever before. That night, the trust and sense of belonging between them grow even stronger. That night, perhaps for the first time, Liz sleeps in complete peace and tranquility. Since childhood, she had spent almost every night in fear and pain. Her family was extremely poor, so they all lived in a single room. In such an environment, her parents often quarreled. Her father would vent his anger on her mother, while Liz and her siblings watched helplessly. Every morning, her mother's body would bear the marks of abuse, and she would silently shed tears. Because of this, Liz always feared that her own future might mirror her mother's. But fate had chosen a different path for her. She met Ju Hee-won, a man who always treated her with respect, cared for her, and embraced Dorothy as his own daughter. To him, Liz was nothing less than a queen, and Dorothy was his little princess. Now, every morning, Liz would wake up to the sound of crackling wood in the fireplace, logs that had kept them safe from the cold all night long, and every morning, her greatest joy was waking up beside the very person who had first made her feel safe, respected, and truly cherished. Liz knew that not every day of married life is beautiful. That is why she wanted to cherish every happy moment spent with Ju Hee-won, big or small, in her heart forever. The next morning, while the rest of the cabin was still deep in slumber, Liz quietly rose from her bed and set about her daily chores. She had no desire to leave the warmth and comfort of Ju Hee-won's embrace, yet she knew that household responsibilities awaited her. It was the best way she could think of to show her gratitude to Ju Hee-won, the man who had transformed both her life and Dorothy's in such a short span of time. Although Ju Hee-won was now living in this medieval world, his mindset remained modern. So as soon as he woke up, he too got out of bed and began helping Liz with the chores. He tended to the hearth fire, arranged the firewood, and took care of various other small tasks himself. Liz was amazed to see this. In her world, men did not typically perform such tasks. While working, Ju Hee-won tried to speak a few words he had recently learned. His pronunciation wasn't perfect yet, but his efforts brought a smile to Liz's face. Then, smiling, he affectionately called her honey. At the sound of this, Liz's face turned as red as a cherry. No one had ever addressed her with such affection before. Seeing Liz's bashfulness, Ju Hee-won felt a playful urge to tease her further. He thoroughly enjoyed teasing her as he watched her face flush with embarrassment. And so the two of them shared laughter and tender, loving moments together. Meanwhile, Dorothy also woke up. However, it wasn't their voices that had roused her from sleep. All night long she'd been dreaming of delicious meat. The very first thought that crossed her mind upon waking was, what if all the meat is gone? She quickly runs over to the bucket where the meat was kept. As soon as she peeks inside and sees that all the meat is still safe, a smile of relief spreads across her face. Now she eagerly begins to wait for breakfast. Seeing that look of innocent joy on Dorothy's face, Ju Hee-won also smiles. At that very moment, he decides to himself that he will go to the forest again today so that he can hunt more and gather plenty of food for his family. Seeing Dorothy so happy while eating meat brings a smile to Ju Hee-won's face as well. He realizes that if he wants to see this happiness on his family's faces forever, he must work even harder. Now, he didn't care at all whether he might encounter wolves or a ferocious lion in the forest. He had only one goal in mind: to ensure his family never went to sleep hungry. With this thought, he sets out this time carrying a sturdy axe. He no longer held a simple wooden stick. Instead, he carried a weapon that could save his life if the need arose. Gripping the axe firmly, Ju Hee-won ventures deeper into the forest. An eerie silence hung all around. Even the wind blowing through the trees seemed to signal that something ominous was afoot. Just then, he suddenly senses an incredibly heavy and terrifying presence. The sensation was so dreadful that the giant wolf, which had nearly cost him his life just a few days earlier, seemed insignificant compared to this presence. Ju-Hyun's entire body goes on high alert. He tightens his grip on the axe, his eyes dart around scanning the surroundings. Holding his breath, he waits for the dangerous creature hiding behind the bushes to emerge. But the very next moment, what steps out from behind the bushes is not a wild animal.